like to call the meeting to order now at 9:30. And to state that the municipality of Jasper respectfully acknowledges that the municipality of Jasper is on Treaty 6 and Treaty 8 territories, as well as the Jasper House Métis District. This land is the traditional territory, meeting ground, gathering place, traveling route, and home for the Dinéza, Assiniboine Winawak, Assiniboine Neha, Nehewak, Anishinaabe, Secwepemc, Stoney Nakoda, Mountain Métis, and Métis. I'm calling at this point if there's anyone who has any additions to the agenda today. Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. I would like to add item 7.4, the Alberta Munis 2025 President Summit and Municipal Leaders Caucus meeting in Edmonton in early March.
Are there any other additions? Would someone like to make the motion that we accept Councillor Melnick's addition? Councillor Hall, all in favor? Now, would someone like to move that we approve the amended agenda? Mayor Ireland, thank you. All in favor? Okay, we move on then to the minutes of the January 14th Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, sorry.
I think just for people that are watching to look at the minutes from the last Committee of the Whole. It's available here, but just the connections to mental health and addiction support resources. I think that was a very good presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I think very pertinent for the time, and just a reminder that there are services out there to help people.
Thank you so much for that, Councillor Demoda. Delegations. This is the delegation part of our agenda where any member of the community can come forward to address council on any topic that's on the agenda. Is there anyone here who would like to make a presentation? Okay, we move on to correspondence, and we have some very special correspondence today from the Governor General of Canada, expressing appreciation for her visit to Jasper earlier in the fall. The copy of this letter is in the agenda package and available for anyone to read if they so choose.
I did have a comment.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I wanted to say that it was a very well received and heartfelt letter from my perspective, and not just a generic thank you. It was very specific and local to our situation and her experience here. So that meant a lot to read that. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer, and also I really appreciate that she thanked in the letter Amanda and Emma, and often those behind the scenes may go unrecognized, but we certainly know all the important work that those two do. So thank you.
Do we need to make a motion? Okay, would someone like to make a motion that we accept this correspondence from the Governor General? Thank you, Councillor Kelleher, and all in favor? We move now to 7.1, Director's Report from the Director of Urban Design and Standards, and I believe this may be the first one. So welcome, Director Saunders.
It is indeed. I have the green line. It is indeed the first report. We're coming up on February 1st will be the 6-month anniversary of the department's existence inside the municipality of Jasper. So the department is the Urban Design and Standards Department, and I started working for you on August 1st. So the thinking here is just simply to lay out for you what our activities have been since August 1st. We know that it's in the context of recovering from the fire, but at the same time, we've been hiring and working on some projects. Some things are immediately in front of you, like the rebuilding guide that came out on October 29th. We worked quite a lot on that, but behind the scenes, we're also assembling the team to have a robust planning and development department for you. So the purpose today really is to give you a sense of what we're up to or what we've been up to, and that we have been staffing up. So you'll recall in September, Christian Lee and Lucas Sherwin were hired. In November, Isla Tanaka and Marley Pollock were hired, and those 4 individuals were our town planners. Christian Lee took a new position with the city of Calgary, and he's been replaced by Michael Borland. 2 of those positions are permanent full-time, and 2 of those positions are 3-year terms. But just wanted to lay out that those folks are new to us, working with us. Also in the department are Leanne Pelche. So Leanne is the housing coordinator. She's been doing quite a bit of work on applications for housing funds. And then also Mona Eldabi, who you've met online before, who's not physically living in Jasper yet, but is working on energy and environment files. So you'll see more of us over the course of the weeks and months to come. But just wanted to give you a chance to see a quick 1-pager of what we're up to, and also give you an opportunity to ask any questions. The entire team will be in front of you next week with a more robust presentation about what we're doing. But yes, nice to be here.
Thank you, Director Saunders, and I might just take a moment to express appreciation to your team for the open house on Saturday, the in-person open house. They were very personable and always had a crowd of people around them, and it was very much appreciated by myself and by residents. I'll open it up to questions now from any of the councillors. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you for the presentation. I guess one of my questions as we go forward is timeline on permitting. You know, I just pulled up quickly the Jasper Development Parks Canada website. It doesn't look like there has been much development permits or building permits issued as of yet. I know we've been focusing on demolition. Are you able to monitor how the progress is going in that department yet, or are we kind of at arm's length currently with, you know, new development permits, et cetera, coming up?
We're at arm's length. Very simply what the team, the MOJ team is doing is helping people with development inquiries. And it's a really significant contribution to be able to sit with people, figure out how to submit a complete application. So then once that application is in at Parks Canada, they have an easier time of it. We work quite closely every day with our colleagues at Parks, and one of the things that we're looking at gathering is just basic statistics to have a bit of a dashboard in terms of how long permits take to go through and what expectations people can have for both the development permit, but then also the building permit. Parks is a wonderful partner, and they have a higher than normal volume of activity right now, and we're supporting them to get through this tricky time.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just to follow up, as we, you know, take more and more responsibility over, maybe it's a matter of just having some type of portal where applicants can go and see, you know, where in line are these permits at, rather than you know, currently and in the past, it's been, you know, put your application in and then get the email back suggesting that, you know, time, response times are 20 days or 40 days, et cetera. So it kind of goes into a bit of a cloud for a while. But if we kind of see just like, maybe a little bit more real time of like where it is in the queue, and when, updated expectations of when we think we'd be able to hear back from an application. Yeah, as we kind of build out our department, be beneficial.
Thank you. Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Wilson, one of the things that I expect when the municipality is issuing permits is we'll have some established service standards. So there can be an expectation that a complete application could pop out the other end in X number of days. Like we'll have a defined number of days. One of the things that we're also working on behind the scenes at the municipality is how to have such a portal so that an application could be made and you can see what's happening with it, so that transparency is there.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer. And yes, I agree with Councillor Wilson. It is a question I get from people in the streets when, how will I find out? Where is my application? My question for you, Director Sanders, the 3 staff that are term, those are funded by the disaster relief program. Is that correct?
Yes, there are 2 of the town planner positions are 3-year terms funded through the disaster relief program. Yes.
Okay, thank you. If I may, one more question. Around MPL Place, I wasn't a councillor at the time when that was built. What is happening there? I feel like it's coming up at some point. It's 10 years. I don't know the history of MPL Place. Might be able to explain that to me.
I will have to go and get that information and bring it back to you.
Thank you.
Councillor Demota and then Councillor Melnick.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer. It's nice to see you here today. Ms. Sanders, put a smile on my face, nice to see you in person here. I think one of the questions that I've been hearing regularly in the community, even from people that, that are usually well informed, have brought up the number 50 to me on permits being issued per year. And there's something circulating out there. I don't know where it is. I couldn't find it, but I've been asked on a few occasions, how come Parks Canada and municipality are only allowing 50 rebuild permits per year. And I said, well, that would take an exorbitant amount of time. I don't think that's the number. I just wanted to, publicly get some of that clarification out. That's okay through you. That's I don't know where it's coming from.
Through you, Deputy Mayor to Councillor Demota, I also do not know where that's coming from. The number of permits that will be issued this year will be the permits that are applied for. There's no cap. I'm reading into your question. There's a cap on the number of permits. There's no cap on the number of permits that will be issued.
Thank you. I appreciate your brief response.
Succinct is a little hard to say in this on a microphone.
Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. I just wanted to comment on MPL Place. That was done during my first term, and my first term ended in 2010, and I believe it was 20 years at MPL Place. Would be in its current situation before being handed over to the Housing Corporation. I would like that confirmed though, but I think the earliest we're looking at is probably 2029 with that housing inventory. Will come back to us.
Other way. It's
Other
not
way.
coming back, it's going.
Going, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Waxer, just one really important point. Obviously, administration can get the details and come back to council. We certainly can circulate that by email to everyone. But important point there is that at the expiry of the agreement for MPL Place to be affordable housing, it will actually be the owner of the property, which is a private owner, will be free and clear to be able to rent it at whatever rate they choose. So there's a limitation on the maximum amount of rent that can be charged, essentially keeping it affordable for a period of time. And I think Councillor Melnick is probably right, 29, 27 kind of stuck in my mind, but we'll find the right number. But in the next couple of years, the owner of that property will have the right to be able to begin to rent it at market rates.
Thank you for that, CEO, given, Councillor, Kelleher.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. My question for Ms. Saunders is, the new affordable housing, the 40 units, are you confident that will be able to break ground in spring of 2025? How is that permit submitted, coming along?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the development permit is submitted. We will see how long it takes for the permit to be issued. I'll confirm in writing what the precise construction schedule is, but the plan is 2025. Yeah. We recognize the urgency to get that building up and running.
Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Waxer, I want to go back to where Councillor Wilson began with respect to our involvement in the development process, and you indicated it remains arm's length for now, but you are assisting with individuals within the town who are seeking guidance before they submit. Under service trends, you indicated that you responded to 50 development inquiries. Are you able to separate residential development from commercial development? I'm wondering whether there has been any commercial leaseholders coming to seek advice. And I ask that because I am hearing that there is a degree of uncertainty with respect to what they can anticipate in terms of development process. And of course, it's important to the economic recovery of our town that businesses get rebuilt. It's also, I think, important to the visitor experience that they see in our downtown core that there is progress being made. And yet I'm hearing from some commercial leaseholders that they have permits in and no response. Have you heard from anybody in that regard?
Mostly through you, Deputy Mayor, mostly the inquiries are residential in nature and a few commercial, and I think that represents the proportion of the number of properties that were harmed, right? And most of the time that we're spending with people is what is the development process? What are the rules? What are the regulations? What can I do? What can't I do? How does the commercial cap work? All of those kinds of things. And we support people in those respects. We're not necessarily hearing from people who have already submitted a permit and are wanting to find out how long it's going to take. That's not information that we have, but generally those are not the inquiries we're receiving. It's quite literally people who are, whoa, I've got this big project that I didn't plan on having, and how does it work? And what can I do? What can't I do? So I can inquire and get some more specific information about what proportion of the 50-ish, it'll be more than that now that we're at the end of January, but what proportion are commercial and what exactly we're hearing from commercial folks too. Without relaying any private information, we can absolutely do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Director Saunders. That was exciting to have that first ever report from your new department. Is there a councillor willing to make the motion that we accept the report for information? Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. I do make that motion that committee receive the report from the Urban Design and Standards Department for information.
All in favor? Motion carried. We move on now then to 7.2, in-town contractor camps, interim residences, and laydown requests. And I'm not sure who's speaking to that.
I'll handle that, Deputy Mayor Waxer. So in front of you is a recommendation from administration and from the JRCC, looking for council support for opportunities to support reconstruction efforts by making provisions for in-town contractor camps, interim residences, and laydown yards. Further recommendation is that if committee is supportive of this concept, that you direct administration to come forward with any legislative changes that might be required. We've identified some here, but there may be others. In essence, the JRCC has received a number of requests from a number of different areas across the community, individuals, contractors, and others who are essentially trying to plan out how they will manage construction and reconstruction in the community. We have a number of prohibitions on and limitations on how public lands are utilized within the municipality, and we also have limitations on things like camping inside the urban boundary for obvious reasons. Administration is of the mind that there are likely ways to support reconstruction efforts by enabling residents, leaseholders, to have a form of accommodation on their site. Once the site has been, the debris has been removed, and when the testing has come back, the health and safety testing has come back. We've also heard from contractors doing large construction projects. They might like to have on-site accommodation for their reconstruction workforce or for labor. And administration is obviously supportive of trying to enable rebuilding as quickly as possible. Another area of concern is managing laydown yards, or essentially material storage. So when you're building something, you have materials that need to be stored very close to the site. And with as many different sites as we have happening across the community all at once, administration is mindful of the need to coordinate that. So in essence, administration is proposing that council support us looking at varying our regulatory framework in a way that would allow us to enable all three of these different uses. Administration at the JRCC has put together a regulatory framework and a very detailed guide for folks that are looking to apply. We would propose that there are, very specific limitations. So it would just be that anybody can start to use land in the town however they wish. There would need to be an application process. Leaseholders would need to be directly involved. The timeframes, waivers would be granted, waivers from any regulation or any approach would be limited in timeframe, potential to renew, but again, that these aren't sort of blanket waivers or broad-based approvals, that they'd be targeted, and that they'd be specific to only recovery-related uses such as contractor laydown, temporary residence for displaced residents. Of course, any applicant, a part of the framework would be that any applicant would have to meet any other applicable safety, environmental, or operational conditions. So for example, if somebody was proposing to bring in some kind of accommodation, it would need to meet provincial health and safety regulations, building code, all those other sort of things. So again, it really is about us looking at the types of limitations that we have on the way land is used in the municipality, in the town site, seeing if there's ways that we can be more flexible to enable these three different types of uses. Administration believes that this would facilitate the rebuild effort, and we would look for council support in giving direct, council support in that concept, and committee's direction to administration to bring forward any required legislative changes that may be necessary. Our first concept here was that there may be enough latitude within the CAO's discretion in a couple of the bylaws, but there may be other bylaws that might need explicit council approval. So we'd like to take some time out to take this concept away and bring it back to council with any specific changes or waivers that are required. But in the interim, in order to provide the industry residents and the JRCC logistics team with enough information to know whether this concept would even be supported. We're here today looking for that endorsement from committee and ultimately council. Happy to answer any questions.
Mayor Arnold.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Thank you, Mr. Given, and to the JRCC for bringing it forward. I'm supportive of the concept. The one issue that I identified actually came from the next item on our agenda, which is the letter of forbearance with respect to the pop-up commercial opportunity. But it seems to me that that would be a wise thing to do with respect to this proposed use. We can change our legislation as we determine necessary, but all of this land is leasehold land, and to the extent it's residential, it can't be used for commercial purposes. I have no doubt that Parks Canada would give us a letter of forbearance similar to the one that we've received for commercial use of public space. But I think that residents as leaseholders should have that same degree of comfort that they will not be offside their lease if, for example, they allow a contractor to use their residential leasehold as a laydown area, because then currently that is simply not permitted. So again, one suggestion that we get Parks Canada clearly in advance as we're working out what we must do with our own legislation to issue a similar letter of forbearance.
I'm apprehensive of this, and I know administration will definitely look at each situation with caution. But a few things. I don't want to erode possibility of having a large scale contractor camp. And if we're approving in town contractor accommodations, that may be the case. I also don't want to erode the opportunity to have a large scale laydown area just outside of town, which those two things are actively being worked on. And I also don't want to put our residents at risk if we kind of give, like, and I know that we won't be, but you know, the full green light. I'd hate to see contractors camping in RVs, you know, dispersed throughout the community. It's going to be a super busy summer into the winter. It already is busy, and there's no campers on the streets, and so it's going to get busier. And if there's residents camping, which is the first thing I support, because I think residents should have the opportunity to be in our community. Contractors, I am in more support of having a large scale work camp and not dispersed throughout our community. I am in support of some situations, but not many, whereas there could be areas cordoned off for contractor camps in specific locations. Like single family residential areas, I don't see benefit to that. And I also am a bit concerned about having residents also dispersed throughout, like in front of areas where active construction is going on through the summer. It's going to be super congested, even with you know, the material that you have on at hand for the week, the dumpsters that we need for construction waste, the machines that we need, the concrete trucks, that, you know, so dispersing people living amongst that is really concerning to me. So again, I don't want to erode possibility of having a large scale work camp. And I don't want to put our residents living amongst that area at risk. Anyway, I know administration would consider all of that, what I've just spoke to, but those are my concerns.
Indeed, Councillor Wilson, if I can respond to some of those concerns, they have been top of mind and have been considered in this process. JRCC has put together a rather comprehensive, essentially, application and screening process in order to be able to vet and manage some of these considerations and concerns. In regards to the potential to undermine a contractor camp, we have considered that. At the end of the day, what we're looking at is a question of aggregate housing, right? And aggregate demand for places for people to reside. We know that just on the reconstruction workforce side of things, we anticipate needing to accommodate 300 to 500 construction workers at any given time. And that only takes into consideration residential redevelopment. It doesn't consider commercial or any of the works that Parks needs to do. So we are anticipating significant demand that's going to exceed what we're able to provide in terms of supply. And so based on the numbers that we are projecting, we anticipate that there is more than sufficient demand for a contractor camp initiative that is being worked on. And if we don't find other contributions to aggregate demand, we will slow down the rebuild and the recovery process. So this is the process that's been outlined is one that would look at it on a site-by-site basis. We're really looking at only the total loss areas and where there wouldn't be, say, residents interspersed directly between laydowns and between these types of things. So we're looking at specific areas where the entire area is at a total loss, and therefore it would make sense to actually aggregate and put some capacity there. Similarly, for site laydowns, is the same situation. So we are moving forward with a general staging area on the old woodlot, and that's an initiative that is being advanced and moving forward. We've had extensive discussions with the building industry, and they've indicated that that can be helpful for some things, but there are other things like framing packages and large truss packages, et cetera, that they need to be able to accommodate closer to the site. And so we need to find a way. Historically, or traditionally, how these things are done is you're either dealing with greenfield development or brownfield development. In greenfield development, you have access, and a overall developer has access to a large area, and then they manage the staging and the laydown and the construction according to a phased approach. Or if it's brownfield, it's usually individual one-off infill type of construction. We have a unique situation here where we have a combination of the two, and we're needing to find some unique solutions. So it's not every developer or development that would have the possibility to do this. There will be an application and a vetting process. We are confident that there is sufficient aggregate demand, that this would actually be a contribution to support the reconstruction efforts. And we can adjust afterwards. If we are seeing that there are challenges, then we can make adjustments and we can make changes there. But for those reasons, we actually do feel that both some accommodation in town using the existing infrastructure is going to be important to meet that aggregate housing demand because we don't simply have enough other serviceable land that can do that. And then again, same thing for the laydown. There still needs to be some facility for proximity to the specific sites, because you're not going to be able to stage, again, truss packages and stuff like that out at the woodlot and have that be a efficient way of managing the rebuild, not when you're doing multiple builds on the street at the same time.
Thank you. And that was Director Funk that jumped in there for people that are viewing and don't get to see. If you don't recognize the voice already, through you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, I was happy that you were here today because I do have some questions and some of the legislative based that might have some legislative challenges. Outside of what our constraints are within the community, I'm wondering if it was ever discussed at the JRCC the opportunity to use some or all of the land between the Parks Canada compound and Walkerville. It was kind of brought to my attention that that's kind of like a nowhere land that has an opportunity, that might provides for some work camp staging or lay down areas. So in the past, I've kind of wanted to get some, plumbed water up there for fire suppression, because there is none there, and that's always been the challenge for the area. And Parks Canada, never really had the desire to legitimize, Walkerville, but now that we're going through this process after our fire, there could be opportunities, that might be a little, lower hanging than, there were in the past. So I'm just wondering if that's ever been discussed.
So you'll have to forgive me, Councillor Demoto. Walkerville is not a term I'm familiar with. I assume that you're referring to the CN lands north of the Parks compound. So the colloquial term I'm not familiar with, but I am familiar with the lands. Yes, it has been discussed and explored. So there are two challenges with that. First and foremost is that those are lands leased by CN and controlled by CN. And so anything that we would do there would need to be done in cooperation with them. And in addition to that, there are problems with contamination in the land that make it not suitable for housing, similar to the challenge we had at the woodlot. So for non-serviced uses, the woodlot as a staging ground for material will actually meet and exceed the demand. There's a large enough space there that we can manage that demand there. And furthermore, I don't believe there's no assigned budget or financing available to run water, for example, to make that a viable site for accommodation. So though all of the land in town, anywhere there's land in town, we have fully assessed for its viability for any of the purposes that we're discussing. And certainly for any habitation, those lands were discounted as not being viable at this time.
Yeah, I understand the challenges right now of having like subsurface, water services being run from different areas into different areas, and that takes a lot of staging in itself. But I was thinking outside the box because opportunities, and this isn't my realm, but there's also above service opportunities as well. The other question is, I know that, and segueing from the CN conversation, that tracks 9 to 13 haven't been in use for a long time from what I've, understood. And I'm just wondering if there is an opportunity to work with CN, whether, there's opportunities to have like flat decks where construction businesses can have some storage on cars that are stationary kind of thing, so that they can go in and out and grab their stuff.
So we did have extensive discussions with CN early on in the recovery process to talk about how we could potentially utilize their land. They were not necessarily opposed to allowing that to be used as a laydown area. However, there were some constraints and concerns also for their own operations that challenged it. And in the end, it was found to be more viable and expedient to make use of the parks controlled lands rather than those specific lands. In the long term, and I will look to Director Sanders, but I believe that as we work through the development of an official community plan or a municipal development plan, as the term is, there will be some reconsideration of the future use of those lands and what that could look like, but that's a long-term planning process and not something that we are looking to address in the immediate term.
Great, thank you very much. And just to finish off, I don't know if enough thanks went to and continues to go on to CN for all their support during our emergency and going through that. And they've always been very supportive of our community and different things that we do here. And I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to have a broader conversation with them in the short term, at least, to see if there are opportunities that they're willing to explore with us and some of the things that we talked about to maybe alleviate some of the strain, where we're going to need some of these sites. And if there are opportunities, even considering that there might be some contamination, the more that we can, spread out or relieve from the actual municipal boundary or within the town site itself, the more opportunities we'll have for people that are living in the community.
Yeah, so again, we've maintained a consistent communication with CN throughout the process and have appreciated their contributions and discussed the ways that they can contribute. including moving material by rail, which unfortunately is also not viable at this time. At the end, what we're trying to manage is we also can't have things spread out in all kinds of different places. It becomes difficult to manage and to permit and to regulate. So what we're looking at is essentially two categories. One, large scale staging area where debris can be material can be stockpiled for the construction industry and can be used to support, and that can be managed outside the municipal boundary and offsite. So that is what we're looking at the woodlot for. But when we're talking about laydown, it's specifically for the material that needs to be adjacent to the construction site to enable and facilitate the rebuild process. Right? Again, staging truss packages, for example, out of the woodlot doesn't help the rebuild. In fact, it does the opposite, because then it adds an additional logistical complication of you have to transport it to the woodlot, and then you again have to find a future opportunity to transport it and put it in place at the site. So it introduces an additional step. So we're really looking at those two separate needs, one for large scale staging, which we can manage sufficiently at the woodlot. And we have to consider there will be a need for fencing, potentially some security, different considerations. So we can't spread that out over too many different locations. And then again, the need for laydown immediately adjacent to construction sites, which can only be done adjacent to the construction sites.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful and, you know, and helpful for other people in the community that are watching that might be questioning those things. And I, as always, appreciate the level of answers that you have. It's really good and well detailed. So thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer, and I appreciate this coming to us, and I want to thank administration for these ideas. I am in support of anything that will get residents back in their homes as fast as possible, including opening up work to be done on Sundays. I don't know about the rest of you, but the sound of an excavator at 8 a.m. is actually music to my ears, so thank you very much for that. My question is around residents occupying their land during the rebuild, and it says RVs, aqua trailers, similar temporary structures. If I'm reading this right, I could put an RV on my lot and live in it while I'm waiting for my modular to come back on.
So that is one of the opportunities that we are working to explore together with parks. There would be restrictions around that. For example, you would still need to have utility tie-ins of some sort. Specifically and in particular electricity, because we would not allow generators. It would go against the noise bylaw. Right? So you would need to be the ability for the units to be self-supported. And the more temporary in nature they are, like an RV, the easier it is. You start to move towards more permanent style, and then it becomes more complicated from a parks permitting perspective. So it is something that we recognize. The recovery rebuild is going to take several years. It's not something that's going to get done in year one. And we recognize that there are some people, for their own reasons, may self-select and decide that it's better for them to plan for their rebuild in year 2 or year 3 than in year 1. And if we're able to provide a facility that allows them to make use of their existing property and they're able to reside there, that is something that we are looking to facilitate and support. But again, it will be on a case-by-case basis. It will depend on the unit, the location, the specifics. There will be a permitting process that will need to be gone through.
Thank you.
Councillor Killer-Herndon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Just to follow up with Mr. Park on your last comment. So if I understand this clearly, that it might be an opportunity for people that have housing this winter that could go live in their RV for the summer and then go back into temporary housing again for the winter. That might really help, especially if they're not building for another year, if they could stay on their lot for the summer months.
So that is a possibility, again, something that we are looking to facilitate. Parks Canada is also intending to make a number of campsites available at Whistler's Campground for residents to be able to reside in their RVs over the summer period. So yes, we are looking to facilitate all of those options. Again, working on this concept of aggregate housing demand, right? We are bringing interim housing and we're bringing as much as we're able to. We know it's not going to be sufficient to meet the overall demand. So we're trying to find other creative solutions to allow that.
Councillor Hall and then Councillor Melnick.
Let's go ahead, already.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Melnick first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, and I do want to thank administration for bringing forward this proposal. It's thinking out of the box, and this summer and this next year is not business as usual. And I think we need to bend the rules and, you know, be as proactive as possible. I do support this proposal, and I hope that we can expedite the process and, along with our partners in Parks Canada, try to facilitate as many people living in town, as many in-town work counts as required in this initial stage. I noticed that you're referring to waivers for a fixed period, 6 months or a year, possibly renewable. And I think that's important. This is not going to be the new norm for the next 5 years. This is a proposal to get us through the first year. And after we get through the first year and we have development that could be a year from now, year and a half from now ready, will greatly help our residential situation and improve the fortunes of people that currently are not able to make it in town and may not make it back to town this summer. So I do support this and hope that like I say, our partners at Parks Canada will do everything they can to work with us.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you again for taking another question. Back to my first question around ATCO trailers. So if there is a surplus of ATCO trailers that come in for temporary housing, I know Parks is bringing some in. Is it an opportunity for those trailers to go on somebody's land in a temporary, if there's not enough space that we've in our 4 lots?
The short answer is no. So there are specific rules around procurement and contracting and site locations and servicing that we have to manage for those particular units. So there's not an opportunity for individual of those units to be placed on people's individual lots. And again, to simplify and manage the process, the requirement here would be for an individual landowner would have to procure their own unit, whatever it is, go through the permitting process, get it situated on the parcel, and then if they chose to reside in it themselves or they chose to make it available as a rental unit, as long as the tenants need to reside, that is something that could be possible. What we're not trying to do is create a situation where people can sublease their land on a commercial basis to others, because that creates all kinds of additional complications and consequences.
Councillor Demoda.
Yeah, thank you. This just reminded me of a conversation that we had really early on, where I was asked by a member of the community who had a auxiliary dwelling unit or carriage suite on top of a garage. Forgive me for the term, but we're wondering, because garages are a little quicker and easier to build, is there an opportunity for people to get those erected on their property first, like get a quick permit and then watch or be present while their house is being built, at least to get some quick housing done in the community?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Demoda, yes, absolutely. If somebody would like to choose to build an accessory dwelling unit, or, and this one's easier, an additional dwelling unit on their site, that could be a garden suite, so a structure in the back behind a home, just all on its own, that is more like a carriage house. Could be a garage with a suite above. Those are also permanent housing options that we would love to facilitate. It does require some planning, some site planning to imagine where your home is going to be and where this accessory building is going to be, that you don't end up putting it in a location that minimizes, say, the footprint of your home. So it does require a little bit of planning, but absolutely doable, and Parks is open to receiving those applications right now.
I think that's good, particularly for those who had one already. So I will encourage that for people that ask. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, through you to Director Fark. I appreciate that there has been lots of thought put into this. Perhaps not all that has been conveyed to me yet. I'm just interested in the public spaces that might be made available and how that process would work. So we may have some public areas, streets, in decimated, neighborhoods where nobody has used them for months, and they could be used as, say, a laydown area. Has administration thought through the process of application? Would that be available for every contractor? Would it be just on a first come, first served basis or individualized? I'm thinking ahead, there's going to be lots of developers in town. Some of them they will all have a need for, say, a laydown area. But if somebody's coming in to build 10 houses, they could be dispersed broadly. And so, they won't have a neighborhood that will be a central spot for them. So have you configured how this might work on a case-by-case basis with contractors? And would public space simply be made available to any contractor who wanted to use it?
So yes, these are considerations that we have been working through. And the public spaces that we're talking about really are only the streets in the total loss areas. So we have identified a number of streets where it is essentially total loss for the entire street on both sides. And in those situations, assuming we can put in place a traffic accommodation plan to reroute traffic, which would also be required, so it's also being considered, then it makes sense to close off those streets and to allow that entire street be available for both laydown and potentially a location for some contractor accommodation, temporary style accommodation. So that's what we are looking at and how we would plan to manage it. We have again a very capable engineer named Logan Ireland, who has put together a beautiful 67-page process document that looks at all of these considerations and how they would be managed. It's quite comprehensive. The idea being that we would close off the street, we would assign a prime contractor responsible for the entire area. So that would be one of the requirements, is that one of the contractors would have to be willing to step up and assume prime contractor status for that street. And then, yes, it would be made available to any of the contractors who would work in there. So there's no intention to favor or give exclusive access to some contractors over others. And we would be working on and with the contractors through that process to identify who is working in that area, under what timeline, and then how do we accommodate that need. And in honesty, we're intending to put some of the responsibility back on the developers and contractors themselves. And they're going to have to organize themselves, they're going to have to come to some agreement, and they're going to have to cooperate in order to make this work. And if we do not get that cooperation and participation from them, that's not something that we would then permit. Because we're not going to take responsibility for site management, on contractor liability, etc.
Thank you for your thoroughness, and thank you for sharing that with us and with the public. It's important to know the level of detail that has already been considered before you move forward with final plans, if council reaches that stage today. Thank you for that.
Councillor Wilson.
Can you share that document with council?
We certainly can, yes. All 67 pages of it.
Nighttime reading.
Councillor Demola.
Don't talk to me about nighttime reading. I can barely generate words today. I'm ready to move if. Oh,
Sorry, Councillor Hall has a question.
Before you make your motion, are you able to also put that document in the minutes so the public can see? Or is it not?
I think we would prefer to get the direction from council, generally speaking, supportive. There may be some further refinement of the document that we want to work through. It is something that will be public once we have clarity and a way forward, but I would be reluctant to make it public at this time. I see Zio nodding his head in agreement.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I mean, at this stage, so council could have said, no, we don't want this portion of the concept or that portion of the concept. And so before presenting a document that looks like it's the document, I think we wanted to get direction, confirmation from council. As Director Park said, you know, once council approves the concept and we identify any other legislative changes that might be needed, we would make sure that anyone and everyone who might be interested would have access to that document, as we do with all the other rebuilding items. But it's a concept at this time, and I think showing a 67-page document might suggest that it's fixed when in fact it's not, because council hasn't approved this yet.
I appreciate that, and I asked because over the weekend I had a few of my contractor and construction friends asking, like, seeing this, I also alerted them to it. And just, you know, I'm wondering how this all will go down.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad you asked, because, you know, sometimes when the horses leave the barns, it's hard to reel them back in, and then you get stuck with numbers like 50 out there.
Councillor Demoter, prior to
Sorry.
you doing that, I just wanted to jump in and make the comment that I very much appreciate the outside of the box thinking, and that all the questions that I had were asked by other councillors. So I again appreciate the outside of the box thinking. And over to you, Councillor Demoter.
I might be one of those horses, hard to reel in sometimes. All right, yeah, and I'm glad you said that too, because you know, sometimes I throw things out there, and I'm glad that, you know, if I'm already thinking of it, brighter minds have already considered it. So I want to make sure I get this right. I move that committee recommend council support the approach to in-town contractor camps, interim residences and laydown requests as proposed, and that committee direct administration to return with legislative changes as required to implement the changes. And I'm welcome to any friendly amendments to move that forward.
I wonder whether it would be accepted as a friendly amendment. I don't think it changes the nature of the recommendation that to support in principle the approach, because we still don't know exactly the approach. We need to see the details, but in principle, I think we could recommend to council that it's support the approach in principle. Subject to anything that administration might have to say about that proposed friendly amendment, I would offer it.
Okay. All right. To administration, would you like me to repeat that in its whole, or okay? So I will accept that friendly amendment.
And administration, is there any concerns with that? Okay. Any other debate? I'll call the question then. All in favor? Motion carried. We move on then to 7.3, temporary pop-up business village for displaced businesses.
May I,
Sorry.
Deputy Mayor, just return to the last motion and just get clarity, if I can, from administration. So committee has recommended the council support in principle a particular approach, but we've directed administration to go ahead. Does that present a challenge? I mean, council hasn't yet made a motion. This presumes, I think, that the outcome of the motion that hasn't come to council yet to direct administration to proceed, even though we've only made a recommendation to ourselves. So it's just an oddity, and maybe you'll just delay doing anything on the direction until after you get the motion, but it's an odd situation.
Your worship, administration isn't looking to delay anything associated with the rebuild. We're looking to advance things as quickly as possible in all areas. The motion is structured that way so that, you know, we have an indication from committee that you're willing to recommend this forward to council. The second part of the motion says, and get doing the rest of the work and bring it back to us. right? So any legislative changes that would be required would need to come, if the legislative changes, they need to come back to committee and council. So the motion is, we could have had the motion as committee support the concept and principle and direct administration. Could have done that. I think we're sort of asking maybe for a little bit higher standard of it going to council. But the second part says, but don't wait for council's final approval, start assembling all the changes that might be required now so that we can, don't wait 2 weeks. Essentially is what that second part says is, start doing the work. But we acknowledge, of course, that any legislative changes need ultimate council approval. So it's not done until council approves any legislative changes that we would bring forward. We're just getting that clarity that you want us to start working on this now.
Councillor Jamal.
Thank you, and as the mover, that's how I understood it, like, we're going towards council and then administration's doing all that work so that we're coming back and we're not starting from scratch when we finally make the decisions. Thank you.
Is everyone okay to go on to 7.3, or would you prefer to take a break now? Go on. Okay. 7.3, temporary pop-up business village for displaced businesses. Director Saunders.
Deputy Mayor Waxer, I would like to introduce one of our town planners, Lucas Sherwin, and he is going to present the report that's in front of you. Lucas today is calling in from Calgary. He's dividing his time between Calgary and Jasper, but Lucas is one of the permanent full-time town planners. So just wanted to provide that introduction. We've been pitching in and helping with the pop-up village, and Lucas will speak to that to you now.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me all right in the council chambers there. I'm seeing nodding. That's great. Thank you, council. My name is Lucas Sherwin, and I'm a town planner with the Urban Design and Standards Department. Before I get too deep into the presentation, I'd like to also thank my colleague Isla Tanaka for her support on this project. She joined the team back in November, and she's really been instrumental in the work on this project to date. Other collaborators on this have been Kaylee LeBranch with the JRCC, as well as Logan Ireland, as well as our colleagues over at Parks Canada, who've been involved to make sure that this project has been able to progress as smoothly as possible. The RFD in front of council today is that committee recommend that council approve the pop-up business village initiative on Connaught Drive public washrooms parking lot as presented. The project was initiated in response to requests from the businesses who've lost brick and mortar stores in Jasper to use municipal parking lots as interim business spaces while their businesses are rebuilt. Administration is supportive of this practice. Recognizing that losing another summer season would be hugely impactful to local businesses, we've moved quickly to gauge interest through the expression of interest in the attached link, identify a potential site, engage with funders, and identify infrastructure needs and costs related to this project. The proposed location for the pop-up village is at the White Rock Mile Zero or Connaught public parking lot at the southeast corner of the intersection of Connaught Drive and Hazel Avenue to the west of the train tracks. This location was selected to give good visibility to businesses from members of the public, to provide access to the public washrooms, and make use of existing benches and tables in the boulevard as simple placemaking features that add to the space. As of January 8th, 2025, formal expressions of interest have been received from 4 local Jasper businesses, with several more recent expressions of interest received as recently as the Recovery Open House on Saturday. In our initial run, we've allocated approximately 21 parking stalls that are immediately adjacent to Connaught Drive in that parking lot. There is some potential that additional stalls may be needed to be allocated to the project depending on the exact space needs and the final list of businesses that are requesting to participate in the program. Recognizing the challenges the municipality of Jasper will be facing from a revenue perspective during the rebuild, the loss of parking revenue is being partially offset by a permit fee of $1,850 per stall for the peak summer season from May until October. That fee is consistent with those previously used for similar parking stall closures throughout town in years past. We also recognize that parking availability is a concern in Jasper in the summer months. The closure of these 21 stalls represents a closure of approximately 1.8% of the roughly 1,275 stalls that are located within 400 meters of the main commercial portions of Patricia Street and Connaught Drive. Considering the paramount importance of supporting businesses and residents and businesses impacted by the wildfire in the recovery of Jasper, we're recommending that the reallocation of those stalls be part of this project. As a final update, Kaylee LeBranch from the JRCC is currently working with funders at various levels of government, and we've provided initial expressions of interest to help offset the costs of infrastructure servicing and rental fees, and potentially support the project with additional placemaking items like lighting, decoration, and signage to make this truly a place that Jasper can be proud of as well. With that, we are looking for council support on this item, and members of our team are available to answer questions, including myself and Isla Tanaka, who's also available online. Thank you.
Questions, and Councillor Hull with the first of their hand.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. I support this. I think it is a great initiative, breathe some life back into our downtown. And as Councillor Melnick referred to earlier, this will not be business as usual for the next 5 years. The only concern I've had from some business owners in town, is there an opportunity for a business that wasn't destroyed or a new business to take part in this?
Yeah, I'll answer that question. So we have limited the scope of this practice just to businesses that were directly impacted by the fire that lost space. And this is in response to one, there is the commercial cap here in Jasper that is pretty strict from Parks Canada as far as allowing new businesses. In addition, the letter of forbearance that's attached to the public documents here is very clear that they will only support sort of the use of public lands for interim business spaces or for businesses that were impacted by the fire directly.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Keller-Hernby.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. And my question is regarding the vet clinic. They have expressed an interest, but they need the space for a year. Are you looking at this area for the vet clinic also to operate out of?
Yeah, maybe I'll pass that to my colleague Isla Tanaka. She's been working more closely with the vet clinic to identify a location and has been working with them.
Thank you, Lucas. Yes, they are looking for a year-round space. And we are actively looking for that. It's utilities are the main concern for them, but they are able to procure a container for what they want to do, and it's just finding the right location for them, and it will certainly be year-round.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, through you to Lucas. I wanted to start with expressing appreciation to Parks Canada and appreciation to municipal administration for securing that letter of forbearance. And I recognize that forbearance is a word that might have either neutral or even negative suggestions in it, but in this case, it seems to me that it is far beyond tolerance of an activity. I see this as very active encouragement by Parks Canada to support our efforts for recovery, and I really do appreciate it. I think the letter could have been titled something different other than forbearance, because it's not as if they are just turning a blind eye. I think this is an indication that they are committed to the recovery of our community, and it's appreciated that they will take this stance and allow that. So I just want that on the record as a note of appreciation. My question is with respect to the space. So currently there are 4 applicants. The report indicates that there are 21 stalls that are to be made available. How many of those stalls would be committed to these 4 applicants? If others later see the benefit of this sort of usage, would there still be space available for others? If not, could more space be made available? Because the economic recovery of our community is critical, and other businesses that have been destroyed by the fire might come to the realization that this is an opportunity that could work for them. So is there room for expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. And through the deputy mayor to answer to the mayor there. We've allocated, that initial sort of bank of 21 stalls. We're based on some preliminary site planning and input from the businesses who've indicated, what their space needs look like. I think we've allocated about 2/3 of those initial 21 stalls. When we were doing some initial site planning as well, we were considering the vet clinic to be sort of in that bank of stalls. We are sort of looking at a couple of different options with them as well. Recognizing that they serve sort of a different demographic. It's a more of a community-based service and that sort of thing, and then the year-round nature of their use as well. And we have provided, or we have sort of sketched out some preliminary opportunities for an expansion zone as well. And so it would be as simple as sort of taking on that second bank of parking stalls that are immediately to the south and east of the ones that are closest to Connaught. And we would potentially look at closing off a portion of that drive aisle. And that would actually provide a strong space to sort of get a nice corridor. You could have some activity space in there and some benches and that sort of thing. So we are looking at that as an option. It's really dependent on demand from local businesses though. And I will say that we are still open to receiving expressions of interest. We wanted to start this conversation early so that we had a sense of how much space we would need to allocate, test the process, make sure that we were asking the right questions. And so that we weren't getting into the end of April and all of a sudden folks were scrambling to find space and service the sites and rush through that process. We wanted to get these conversations started early today.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. And my question, a couple of questions. One of the activities, or I won't call it businesses, but I'll refer to the weekly farmers market. This question is going to relate back to our previous agenda item where there's a couple of parking lots where the farmers market occupied for one day. And I think in your last comments, Lucas, you mentioned that you could add more stalls, and it might be useful for the farmers market to be relocated in that parking lot so that, as per the previous conversation, the parking lots at the end of Hazel could be used as laydown area. And that may or may not have been considered by urban planning, but I would hate to see us leave those parking lots available for the the farmers market and then be empty 6 days out of the week. I think we could accommodate the farmers market and create that sense of vibrancy that you talked about, Lucas, in that area right on Connaught. I don't know if you've considered this or it has been considered, but throwing it out there for either your comment or perhaps urban planning.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to pass that over to Isla as well. She's going to be able to provide some details related to the farmers market.
Yes, thank you. I have spoken with the farmers market, and it's actually not a very good space for them under provincial legislation. They do need a commercial kitchen space, so they are exploring other areas. They do know that that is potentially an option where we are keeping it open as kind of a last resort for them. So it's something that has been considered, but they do, under Alberta farmers market legislation, need some other services that are not available in that parking space.
CAO Given.
Deputy Mayor Waxer, I'll also just report, administration's also been in contact with farmers market about other alternate locations, given that their sort of function is maybe an even better definition of pop-up, coming up sort of 1 day a week. And so I understand that we've also been looking at the potential of using Robson Park as well. So we're actively working with the farmers market to look at the considerations and what will work best for them. And so council can be comfortable that their need is being considered by administration, and we're going to find the right spot for them, whether it was at that location, at Robson Park, or somewhere else.
Councillor Melnick.
I need some clarity on the requirement of a commercial kitchen as it relates to a pop-up. If if you could, that seems to be a disconnect to me. There was no commercial kitchen in the parking lots. And, you know, can I get some clarity of how that in the legislation? I mean, when you are a farmer's market, yes, you have to have a commercial kitchen where you produce the food. But I don't think it has anything to do with the location when you're doing the farmer's market. And I need, like I say, to understand the relevance of the commercial kitchen in this context.
That-
CEO Giffen.
Sorry, yeah, thanks, sorry, Isla, through Deputy Mayor Waxer for Councillor Malik. I'm gonna jump in to say that I think it's actually irrelevant for the conversation today. I think Councillor Malik, you probably got it right, that food that is being prepared by somebody for service needs to be done in that commercial kitchen. I don't think the commercial kitchen has a bearing on the selling of the food. And administration would make sure that any of those types of considerations that we worked with the farmers market, certainly they would know the legislation that impacts their operation the best. Administration will work with them to find an appropriately suitable site that had any required amenities. I don't think that council necessarily needs to get into the ins and outs of farmers market regulations, other than to know that administration will work closely with them to ensure that any site that is brought forward meets the requirements of their legislation and their operation.
Thank you, appreciate that. And my other question was related to the Laydown site. And wondering, when we talk about pop-ups, I wanted to ask the question at the Laydown site on the RV parking lot. Will it be the same size that it currently is, or will it be scaled back? It also probably goes back to the previous agenda item as well about laydown areas.
Yeah, I might pass that to CEO Given or to Mike Fark to answer. I know that there's some work happening to determine what should happen with that site moving forward here.
You, Deputy Mayor, we'll report in a more fulsome way on that subsequently. There's some details and shifting things happening there, unless.
Yeah, but we also have recovery project manager Logan Ireland here, and he can speak to that directly.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Hello, council. So the question, I believe, if I could just rephrase for context, is what is expected to happen at the Laydown Sleepy Hollow RV lot come rebuild time in the spring? Is that correct? Laydown's operations are planned to be complete by May 1st. So they have every intention to be done with their work here in town and to be out of that area. And the current plan is to utilize that space for its pre-existing purpose, which is rafting, staging, and pickup, and RV parking. So there's already many operations such as Gem Treks reaching out and trying to solidify their plans for visitors, where to go for rafting and RV and things like that. And so given the available space that is in other areas, such as the lots under consideration for the pop-up business village that are maybe more appropriate as they have public washrooms and a little bit easier for infrastructure to be installed should we want to pursue that, such as ACO Electric and ACO Gas. The preference is to use Sleepy Hollow RV lot for its original intended use.
Thank you, appreciate the clarification on a question that's a little bit off topic, but I think relevant given the use of public lands.
Councillor Hall.
Just was going to offer to make the motion if there are no further questions from my colleagues, and I'm happy to make this motion. I think it's a really great idea. I envision string lights and colorful flags and children singing and playing in the little grassy spot with the picnic tables. It's going to really bring some happiness to the downtown core. So I would make the recommendation that committee recommend council approve the pop-up business village initiative on Cannot Drive public washroom parking lot as presented.
Any debate? Call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. I'm thinking now, well, I guess there's not that much left, maybe we'll keep going.
I give it a bit.
7.4, Alberta Munis, Councillor Melnick.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Councillors, I have sent you, if you haven't seen it already, a couple of documents regarding the 2025 President Summit and Municipal Leaders Caucus, which would be held in early March in Edmonton. This was an Alberta Municipalities conference that I attended last year. I think it would be relevant for us to have representation there. There are some great sessions. There will be an opportunity where there will be some minister sessions. The Premier will be speaking. And also just to support the Alberta municipalities. The Alberta municipalities advocacy for changes in legislation with the Alberta government. I'm putting this on the table now, and what I'm proposing is that I'd like administration to formally approve this request of mine to attend this conference. So what I would like to do is ask council to have this on next committee, our next regular council meeting agenda, to formally approve attending the conference. And as I said, I sent the agendas and the schedules for the 3 days to members, to councillors to consider prior to voting next week.
Councillor Hall.
I would happily make that motion if that is where we're at. I would make the motion that committee recommend council approve Councillor Melnick's attendance at the Alberta Municipality President Summit and Municipal Leadership Caucus. I'm not sure if I have to maybe add if anybody else wants to go, but at this point, I think it's just Councillor Melnick, but I absolutely support that.
Any debate? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion approved. We move now on to the motion action list. CEO, David, have you got anything to add?
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Very limited number of changes at this time. I think the main one is the Jasper Senior Society. Administration just wanted to come back and report that previous direction from back in October to enter a 4-year lease agreement that has been completed, and so that portion can be removed. The second part of the motion around interested parties to develop a plan for senior center, we would see that as being a target for the March timeframe. So to start those discussions, but ultimately creating a plan for a new senior center and the advocacy that would go along with that would be a longer term activity, but we would suspect that the next update might be in March. So we could delete the first half of that motion and then reset the second target as March 2025. And with that, I believe that that's all the changes that administration had for you.
There's no questions or concerns. Is there a councillor willing to make the motion that committee approve the updated motion action list? Councillor Keller or MP? All in favor? Motion carried. Now on to councillor upcoming meetings. Anything to report? Councillor Keller.
I have nothing to report, but I'm going to take this opportunity to congratulate the Jasper and January Committee for a great festival, and also to thank Tourism Jasper for the great lights that they put up this year to brighten up our town. I've had such amazing comments, and I was out on Saturday night with many, and Councillor Hall did a wonderful job as being host, and I have to say the comments in town have been very positive, and I just want to express my thanks to Tourism Jasper, Jasper Fence, Chamber of Commerce, all involved with Jasper in general.
I agree. Anyone? Okay, we'll move on then to upcoming events. We've got the 2025 Tourism Advocacy Summit. And there will be, I believe, some council representation there. And the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Annual Conference and Trade Show. And I know that there's lots of interest in that as well. Then we move on then to, there's no other upcoming events. Oh, sorry, Councillor Demoto.
Yeah, just before we move on, sometimes just thinking a policy change can be easily done. I know that once you break it open, we get into debate about things. However, just in relation to the FCM annual conference and trade show, you know, just to set up the next council for success, because we've been kind of dragging this policy along. It's B003, and it's council member development opportunities. I think there's some archaic wording in there that isn't relevant anymore, or you know, has the potential to change maybe one or two words in there to make it a little easier for us to make decisions on and not to have to drag council through all these extra procedures. So I will come up with something as far as a request and see if we can maybe move that along through either committee of the whole. I understand that administration is busy on a bunch of stuff, and we also have our procedure manual that we haven't finished, and that's the big one. So I just thought I'd bring that up because it seems like almost every year we discuss this, and you know, it's our fault for not moving it forward previously. So it's 14 years old, and I think there's some changes that can be made now that we're in a 4-year cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is in camera. And I'm wondering if we anticipate there will be need to return to the council table after the in-camera items.
Deputy Mayor Waxter, no, administration doesn't believe there's anything that will be coming out of camera.
Okay, would there be a councillor willing to make the motion? We move into camera and that we, at this point, Councillor Hall, all in favor? Motion carried. Thank you for tuning in to all those who've been online and in the gallery. Thank you.